He fixed cars by day and smuggled millions for the cartel by night, right under the DEA's nose. Subscribe for real, true crime stories, where the twist always comes when you least expect it. Javier Morales was quiet, methodical, and no one ever suspected him. He was 38 years old, a second-generation mechanic in El Paso, Texas. Widowed, devoted father, the kind of man who showed up early and never complained. Neighbors described him as gentle, private, always tinkering with something in his garage. His teenage son, Diego, was his world. After losing his wife in a bus accident in 2017, Javier poured every ounce of energy into raising Diego alone. The two of them lived in a modest duplex tucked behind an old gas station. It was unremarkable, until it wasn't. Javier ran Morales Auto Repair on Alameda Avenue. The shop had 3 bays, 1 office, and a reputation for honest work. He charged fair prices, worked weekends, never raised his voice. People said he could fix anything, from a cracked timing belt to a fried transmission. But what no one knew was that Javier also specialized in something else. False panels, modified mufflers, custom engine blocks with hollowed centers. At first, it looked like a passion project. Just a man modifying vehicles for off-road efficiency or weight distribution. But when a 19-year-old courier named Luis Herrera got stopped at the El Paso border on April 3rd, 2022, everything unraveled. Luis was driving a white van registered to Morales Auto Repair. The van appeared clean. No drugs, no weapons, nothing visible. But a DEA agent noticed the engine was mounted differently. Too clean, too symmetrical. They brought in dogs. Then a drill. Hidden inside the engine block were bundles of shrink-wrapped cash. Nearly $2 million. Luis cracked almost immediately. "I just work for Javier," he said. "He told me to drive it across. He said we'd never get caught." Javier Morales was arrested later that night at a gas station in Socorro. He told officers the van was stolen. He said he'd reported it missing days ago, but there was no police report, no theft claim. And Luis's phone showed a text from Javier just 2 hours earlier. "Leave exactly at 7. Don't stop. Use the farm route." DEA agents raided the garage the next morning. There were no drugs, but they found a lockbox in the ceiling above the office, $300,000 in cash, unmarked bills, and a fake DEA badge wrapped in plastic. They found tools designed to open chassis frames without welding, false floor panels, a shipping ledger tucked beneath a dusty printer. More questions than answers. Then they went to Javier's home. Inside a locked drawer in his bedroom were 4 encrypted USB drives, labeled only by year, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Once decrypted, the drives revealed something staggering. Not just smuggling routes, not just pickup times, but entire distribution maps, photos, names, license plates, bank account numbers, and records of over $20 million in cash deliveries across Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and even Southern California. There were references to code names, Gallo, El Sombra, La Reina. And then there were the photos, surveillance shots of DEA agents, their homes, their families. One folder was titled Daily Shift Logs. Another was marked Leak Points. Javier hadn't just built a smuggling operation. He'd built an intelligence operation. In 2015, he'd been recruited by a low-level DEA contractor to act as an informal border informant. He was never formally listed. No badge, no file, just a handshake deal. In exchange for information on cartel trucks and drop houses, Javier was paid under the table, $1, $200 a month, sometimes more. But somewhere along the way, he flipped the script. Instead of helping the DEA, he helped the cartels avoid them. He mapped which agents worked which checkpoints, who rotated when, which surveillance towers were active, and which ones weren't. He used the DEA's own patterns against them. For years, one former agent said, "We had a ghost on payroll, a mechanic who turned our entire playbook into his." The cartel called him El Relojero, the Watchmaker, because his drops were never random, always timed, always clean, always quiet. Luis Herrera was just one of dozens of couriers Javier trained. Many were young, broke, told they were delivering car parts. Javier paid well. No questions asked. The drives also showed that Javier used a custom-built signal jammer during crossings. It interfered with passive RFID readers used to scan cash residue. The device looked like a small fan. Agents never suspected it, but it disrupted the DEA's entire detection system. They had no idea, until it was too late. Investigators later discovered that Javier built this device using scraps from old microwaves and signal inverters. Pure ingenuity. He kept no paper trail, no credit cards, no direct accounts. Every dollar passed through hands, never banks. But one mistake brought it all down. A cousin of Luis Herrera, jealous of the money, tipped off border agents anonymously. That tip flagged Javier's van. And once the cash was found, everything else unraveled. The trial began in February 2023. Javier pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argued he was set up, that Luis acted alone, that the USB drives were planted. But the evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance footage, wire transfers, code sheets, even a hidden GoPro under Javier's desk, recording all shop activity. One clip showed Javier folding money, placing it into compartments, and then nodding silently to someone off camera. That someone was never identified. Prosecutors argued that Javier wasn't just a smuggler. He was a systems engineer, a traitor, a strategist, and the worst kind of insider. The jury took less than 3 hours to return a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Conspiracy, money laundering, trafficking, corruption. The judge called Javier the most surgically precise smuggler the Southwest has ever seen. In May 2023, he was sentenced to life in federal prison without parole, $20 million in restitution, and forfeiture of all assets, including the garage, his home, and every vehicle on the premises. Diego, now 17, moved in with his aunt. He hasn't spoken publicly since, but in a letter to the court, he wrote, "My dad told me we were fixing lives. I didn't know he meant breaking others." The DEA issued an internal review. At least 2 supervisors were reassigned. 1 agent resigned. Another was investigated for neglect of protocol. Javier never apologized, never admitted guilt. In his final statement, he looked at the judge and simply said, "They trained me. I just upgraded the system. Today the garage sits empty. Rusted tools, a shuttered sign, and a rumor that somewhere in Mexico, pieces of Javier's network are still active. Copycats, protégés, maybe even backups. The Watchmaker is gone, but his design, still ticking. Somewhere, quietly, carefully, precisely." The arrest of Javier Morales made headlines. Cartel mechanics sentenced to life. DEA fooled by smuggler genius. But as the country moved on, one man couldn't. Special Agent Ryan Hale. He'd only been with the DEA for 6 months when Javier was arrested. He wasn't part of the task force. He didn't lead the raid. He didn't even get a seat at the courtroom. But something about the case didn't sit right with him. Why did a man as smart as Javier, someone who knew how to hack systems and track federal agents, make such a simple mistake? Why did he let a 19-year-old courier cross the border without even a backup route? Why no contingency? Why get caught? Ryan requested access to the case files. At first, he was denied. Too sensitive. But after a few weeks, he got permission to review the physical evidence, what was left of it. The USB drives, the GPS logs, the receipts. And one thing kept bothering him. The drives weren't just organized. They were curated. Too perfect, as if someone wanted them found. And one folder, buried deep in the 2021 archive, didn't match the others. It had no smuggling data, just audio clips, timestamps, short phrases, no more than 10 seconds long. The first one said, 2 days left. Be ready. The second, stop talking. Windows hot. The third, get the girl. Or none of this matters. Ryan dug deeper. The audio files were dated 2 months before Javier's arrest, and none of them had been mentioned in the trial. Not once. He brought this to his supervisor. The response? Focus on active cases. This one's closed. But Ryan didn't drop it. He pulled Javier's visitor logs from prison. One name appeared twice. Enrique Salgado. No address. No ID scan. Just a name and two security camera clips. Both times Enrique wore a hat, dark glasses, and never spoke during the visit. The prison logged no audio, system error, no signature, no recorded conversation. Ryan ran the name through Homeland Security databases. Nothing. No passport. No driver's license. But the face matched someone else entirely. An old file. An Interpol bulletin from 2014. Alias. El Aguila. The Eagle. He wasn't just cartel. He was logistics. The one who moved weapons through Argentina. Who disappeared after the 2016 ambush in Merida. Who supposedly died in a shootout in Panama 2 years ago. Now, he's visiting Javier Morales. Twice. And both times, the USB audio folder grew by one file. Ryan needed a warrant to reopen the investigation. But the DEA brass wouldn't budge. The Watchmaker was already locked up. The network was shut down. There was nothing left. But Ryan was about to find out just how wrong they were. 3 weeks later, in Juarez, a U.S. Border Patrol agent named Morales, no relation, was found dead in his apartment. Gunshot to the head. No sign of forced entry. No note. And no gun. But something was left behind. A piece of a carburetor. Hollowed out. Clean. A tag on it said Morales Garage. It hadn't been open in months. The place was sealed off after Javier's arrest. But when Ryan got a court order to search the garage again, something was different. The dust pattern was off. Tools had been moved. In the corner, where the concrete was always chipped, the floor had been freshly patched. Underneath, a second vault, not listed in any report. Inside, another USB drive. This one unlabeled. Just a single word etched on it in metal. Luz. Spanish for light. Ryan plugged it in at headquarters. Only one file. A video. Night vision. Blurry. But it showed a woman. Tied to a chair. Someone off camera says, "Say your name. Say who your father is." She doesn't answer. The man says, "This is the only way he talks." Then the feed cuts out. Ryan recognized the girl. It was a photo he'd seen in Javier's house. Next to Diego. His daughter. A daughter no one ever mentioned. Not in court. Not in the press. Not even in his own files. But she was alive. Or had been. And someone was using her as leverage. Javier hadn't made a mistake. He'd let himself get caught. The pieces began to shift. Javier's surrender. The hidden visits. The planted evidence. And the pattern of copycat smugglings rising quietly since his incarceration. This wasn't over. Javier wasn't the watchmaker. Not fully. He was the watch. The ticking was still coming from somewhere else. Ryan filed a confidential report to the Department of Justice. A leak inside DEA was possible. Someone had scrubbed files, redacted names, hidden travel logs. Ryan's email was flagged. His badge access limited. 2 days later, he received a package. No return address, just a cassette tape, a phone number, and a handwritten note. Turn the tape over. Play side B. And whatever you do, don't go back to the garage. He plays it. The voice is unmistakable. It's Javier. Calm, controlled, still pulling strings. If you're hearing this, you've already stepped into the gears, he says. But this machine doesn't stop just because the technician's in jail. You want the truth? Follow the numbers. They'll lead you to her. But be careful, Agent Hale. There's more than one watchmaker. And as the tape ends, Ryan notices the last 5 digits of the phone number match something he saw months ago. A VIN number on a 2008 red Ford truck impounded in a cartel raid in Arizona. That truck vanished from evidence last year. Somewhere, someone is still driving it. And in the glove box is the key to what Javier started. The real network, the real leader, and the truth about what happened to his daughter. But Agent Hale doesn't know yet. He's already being followed. And one of the men watching him wears a DEA badge. Agent Ryan Hale was now off the grid. After receiving the cassette from the anonymous sender, the one with Javier's voice, he knew this wasn't about one smuggler. It was about a system, one designed to outlive its creator. The note had warned him, don't go back to the garage. But Hale went anyway. Only this time, he didn't go alone. He brought a friend, former IC investigator, Zoe Vance. Someone he could trust. Someone with nothing to lose. They entered at 3:17 a.m. The Morales garage was still shuttered, officially sealed. But the back door had been tampered with, magnet strip broken, lockpick marks visible. Someone had been there recently. Inside, everything was quiet, cold. But in the far corner of the garage, under the rusted lift system, Zoe found it. A panel, small, loose. Behind it, an envelope wrapped in plastic. Inside, 6 Polaroids, all time-stamped, each one showing a different person in what looked like interrogation rooms. All bound, all bruised. One of them, a retired Border Patrol agent. Another, a young woman who looked like a social worker. All missing persons, all presumed unrelated. But in the corner of each photo, a detail. A wristwatch, same model, same time, 10:17, always the same. And then Zoe said it. They're staging the photos. Hale realized it instantly. These weren't just photos. They were codes. The watches, the chairs, the placement. Someone was sending messages to someone else through surveillance. Not for fear, not for proof, but for coordination. The Polaroids weren't trophies. They were instructions. Back at his safe house, Ryan pulled the VIN from the cassette note. The red Ford truck, impounded in Arizona in 2021. Gone from inventory 6 months later. That same VIN popped up 3 times in toll logs. Once in Tucson, once in Las Cruces, and then again in El Paso. That was just 4 days before Javier's arrest. But Javier wasn't the one driving. Surveillance footage showed a different man. Tall, shaved head, black windbreaker. No facial recognition match. But Zoe found something else. That man showed up once before in a DEA training video from 2018, standing behind a group of recruits. Not part of the class. Not listed in the credits. Watching. Ryan searched deeper. Training logs. Visitor entries. Lunch orders. He found a name, Thomas Weller. Civilian contractor. Hired by a DEA logistics subcontractor called Oplis Industries. Based in Santa Fe. But here's the twist. Oplis doesn't exist anymore. The business was dissolved in 2020. No digital footprint. No tax filings. But the payments? They're still being made. Monthly. $32,000 wired to a shell company in Belize. Under the memo, operational delay expense. Ryan traced the money. With Zoe's help, they found 6 other dead DEA contracts, all linked to the same Belizean account. That's when they realized this wasn't just a smuggling network. It was a contracted shadow infrastructure operating alongside official federal operations, designed to mimic them, mask them, bury them. And the mastermind might never have been Javier at all. He was just the beta test, the mechanic, the one who made it all look like a one-man genius act. That night, Zoe received a message on her old IC line. Unknown number. No words. Just a location. GPS coordinates. Deep in the Chihuahuan Desert, west of Sierra Blanca. Ryan wanted to wait. Get backup. But Zoe was already driving. They met on a service road at dawn. A lone structure stood, an old grain silo. Burned out, long abandoned. But beneath the floor, buried in ash and wiring, was a hatch. Locked. Military grade. Freshly greased. And a keypad with only 4 digits. Ryan stared at it, then remembered something from Javier's tape. Follow the numbers. He tried the last 4 digits of the red truck's VIN. The keypad clicked open. A staircase led down 30 feet, maybe more, into what looked like a bunker. Computers, monitors, and a wall full of clocks, all frozen at different times. One at 10:17, another at 3:43, a third at 2:06. Zoe started recording, but then they heard it. A voice, calm, filtered, coming from a speaker system inside the bunker. You weren't supposed to find this yet. Ryan froze. Who is this? The voice replied, you've mistaken the architect for the builder. Javier built the machine, but we built him, and now you've entered phase 2. Then the screens lit up one by one, showing live surveillance of multiple federal buildings. Houston, Phoenix, San Diego, all with countdowns. 12 hours, 7 hours, 3 minutes. One clock was already flashing red. Then everything shut off, and the hatch door slammed above them. Locked. Ryan ran up. Nothing. No exit. No signal. Zoe said quietly, They wanted us here. We're part of it now. Above ground, two black SUVs parked quietly on the ridge. Watching, one of the drivers stepped out, dialed a number. They're in, he said. Initiate reset. His jacket had no insignia, but on his wrist, the same watch. 10:17, still ticking. Ryan Hale had been trapped underground for 19 hours. No food, no phone signal, just static playing through the speaker above him. Beside him, Zoe Vance. Quiet, focused, both of them trying to figure out the meaning behind the clocks, the monitors, and that one final countdown timer, now frozen at midnight. But nothing exploded. Nothing happened. No one came, until the power returned. One screen flickered on, then two, then seven, each displaying a map. Dots, pulsing, red, blue, yellow, coordinates spanning 5 countries. It wasn't surveillance. It was inventory, routes, active mules, vehicles, ongoing operations. Still live, still moving. And then one line of text appeared. Hello, Ryan. Are you listening now? Zoe gasped. That voice from the speakers. It was Javier. His voice. But it was live, not a recording. Somewhere, somehow, Javier was speaking to them in real time. Ryan shouted, "Where are you?" The voice answered, "Exactly where you left me. But that doesn't matter. What matters is you finally saw the truth. I was never the boss. I was the firewall." Zoe stepped forward. "Then who are you protecting?" Silence. Then came a name. Regina Vexler. Neither of them had heard it before. But the next monitor pulled up a file. Redacted. DHS clearance. Photo unavailable. Title: Logistics Auditor. Homeland Security, 2014 to 2019. Current status: died in a fire. But the note in the corner read, "Case closed. False." Ryan had access to interagency archives from his training days. When they finally escaped the bunker, through a side tunnel booby-trapped with a fake gas line, they went straight to Washington, D.C. The archive was buried beneath a government admin building near Arlington. Zoe had a contact, an old systems analyst named Desmond, who owed her a favor. They found Vexler's file, physically sealed inside a Category 5 containment folder, which meant one thing. Someone tried to erase her, but protocol required a hard copy in case of state-level subpoenas. The file included a grainy surveillance photo of a woman boarding a plane in Munich. No passport scan, no destination listed. Year: 2021. 2 years after she was presumed dead. Ryan whispered, "She's alive. She's running it now." Desmond replied, "No, she's been running it the whole time." Vexler wasn't a logistics auditor. She was the one who designed the DEA's contractor rotation system. She built the shell networks, hired field assets, and embedded Javier into a test program in 2015. She created the Watchmaker. But when Javier got too smart, too independent, Vexler tried to pull the plug. Instead, Javier built a failsafe. And now, the machine answers to no one. Not Javier, not Vexler. It runs on protocol. That's why the clocks never stop. The data centers were autonomous. Even if Vexler was gone, the system would keep moving. But someone had reawakened it. Maybe Javier, maybe someone else. And now, the inventory maps were expanding. New dots lighting up in Asia, Europe, and even Canada. Then came another twist. Desmond found a matching file, an audio transcript labeled Sequence 3. The voice was female, confident, precise. If Hale gets too close, trigger the regression protocol. Move Morales to Site 9. Wipe Diego's file. It was Vexler, still active, still issuing orders. And she just confirmed something that hadn't been mentioned in months. Diego, Javier's son. Ryan froze. Wait, why wipe Diego's file? Zoe started typing. Searching. Nothing came up. No school records. No phone logs. No credit data. Diego Morales had vanished. Not after the trial, but 6 weeks before it. Right when Javier stopped cooperating. That's when everything changed. That's when he shut down in court. Never spoke again. Never fought the sentence. Javier didn't go silent out of fear. He was negotiating. For his son, Ryan and Zoe flew to Laredo under new aliases. With Desmond's help, they located a transfer van used by the U.S. Marshal Service. One van, logged in to pick up unlisted detainee from an El Paso holding facility in April 2023. Destination redacted, but the gas log showed a full refuel in Los Alamos, New Mexico. That's where Site 9 was rumored to exist. Site 9 wasn't on any map. No signage, no fencing, just desert. But buried 2 miles beneath it, old nuclear storage bunkers converted into data vaults, used during Black Ops in the early 2000s. Then shut down, or so they said. Ryan and Zoe drove straight into the desert. The heat was blinding. Their SUV began to overheat, but they saw the vents, circular grates, pumping warm air from below. Still active. They followed the sound, found the hatch, and this time it opened. Inside, rows of servers, hallways too clean, fluorescent lighting, and footsteps ahead. They hid behind a generator. 2 men passed by, civilian dress, earpieces, but on one of their jackets, a patch, Oplus. The Ghost Company, still operational. Zoe crept forward, opened a side door. Inside, cells, contained, monitored, and in one of them, a young man, skinny, pale, seated, staring at a wall. Diego. He looked up, but didn't recognize Ryan, or even react. Just blinked, slowly, deliberately, then pointed toward a monitor in his room. It displayed a symbol, not a map, not a file, a clock, but it wasn't ticking forward. It was counting down, and it had 3 minutes left. Zoe screamed, "We have to go, now." But Ryan stayed. "What is it? Diego, what is it counting down to?" Diego whispered something, but the speakers cut him off. A woman's voice, calm, confident, familiar. "You never understood, Agent Hale. Javier was just the beginning. He didn't build the system. I did, and I'm still watching." The lights turned red. Doors began locking, one by one, and then every monitor in Site 9 displayed the same thing. Sequence 4 activated. Somewhere in Washington, D.C., 2 Homeland Security executives received a silent ping. A file auto-downloaded onto their secure drives. A photo of Javier Morales, smiling. The Watchmaker was never the mastermind, just a part of the machine. And the gears? They're still turning. If you're ready to go deeper, subscribe, because the next sequence has already started.